Thank you for tuning in to another audio podcast here for hoopslounge.com with myself, Phil Boileau, aka Sporting Phil, and my co-host, Marc Grffin, aka Marc Grffin. Sorry, aka Montreal Marc. Getting too excited about week one, Marc. It was a big one, and you know what? We did some season previews. There were a lot of things that stood out and kind of surprised. I know you're as pumped as I am. Week one, what stood out to you, or what's making you smile these days?
Well, I don't think LeBron's sleeves are making me smile at all. I mean, we're talking about that off camera. I'm wondering if that's going to be a change long term, getting rid of those things. But a lot of surprises going into the NBA season. One just randomly top of my head, Andre Drummond is killing it right now. 5 games in, his number of rebounds and
19 a game.
yeah, number of rebounds and points in 5 games has not been matched since something like 1983 with Moses Malone. I mean, I don't think anyone predicted that, but it speaks how much to him adjusting to the system with Stan Van Gundy.
Absolutely. At the present moment, he's averaging 18.6 points, 19 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks with a 24 PER. That's player efficiency rating. You know what? I think some people were worried that with the loss of Greg Monroe, would he have some trouble there? Would people overly focus on him? Because people were kind of looking at that team like the band of merry men, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Morris, Ilias Elsova, and a bunch of these guys, and the aforementioned Reggie Jackson, who's now making more money than John Wall.
John Wall,
But
yeah.
this team's making some sense, and I think Stan Van Gundy's finally. I mean, look, we met him in person, so obviously we
Mm-hmm.
we know, and it's been proven his track record. He's a really intelligent guy.
Great culture, yeah.
Exactly.
I got to mention this because there's been a lot of kind of concern about Anthony Davis right now. New Orleans has not been off to a great start, but I really, when people start saying these things about him and meshing with Alvin Gentry, I really go back to Drummond and Stan Van Gundy. It's growing pains. It's going to take a while to learn a new coach and a new system and develop kind of a trust and camaraderie together. I know that Davis, he had a great 43 points the other night, but a really slow start. I'm not concerned at all there. It's just going to take a while. And like we said with Drummond and Van Gundy, it almost took them a year to figure it out, but they're going to get it going again soon.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I think the one thing Drummond has going for him is he's planted right inside a system that's custom made for him, right?
Yeah,
Like, and I think as
exactly.
much as Gentry is trying to play this to Davis's strengths, this team, I think, while you look at the individuals, you look at Eric Gordon, you look at Tyreek Evans, you look at guys, you're like, there's some talent there, but there's something about the fit that doesn't feel right to me. And sometimes when you're coaching a team that doesn't have a necessary play together, I mean, guys like Tyreek Evans and Drew Holiday, they both guys who are ball dominant. Guys like Eric Gordon, who are a bit low
Yeah.
percentage on the shooting. Like, I don't know. I like a lot of the players, but I don't like a lot of the makeups.
The
And
fit, yeah. I
exactly.
think there'll be changes. I think there'll be some changes long term. Was it Dell Demps as the GM down there? I believe he'll be making
Exactly.
some changes to make a better fit around Davis, and Gentry's not going to be afraid to make some roster moves. And yeah, let's be honest here. Everyone wants to play with Brow. I think there will be other guys going to make the effort to go down to New Orleans.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things they have to do, just to your point, is clear some cap space, right? Because
Yeah,
if you want people to be able to come and play with Bradwell, then you need, I mean, I know with the new TV deal, they're going to get more money, but you also need playing spots, right? Like if you're wanting to pull in an elite point guard, well, when you already have Evans, Andrew Holiday, and a guy like Eric Gordon who can play sometimes, it's a positional thing. But I think a lot of people were kind of penciling in Anthony Davis to have this kind of superhero year where he'd be easily the best player, the MVP. With
I
the
got him as MVP, but it's going to take a while for them to figure each other out. Like I said, new system. I mean, and plus he's learning how to be a 3-point threat, something he probably hasn't been since he was, 14 years old as a point guard. So he's completely changing his game and evolving it. And you're just gonna have to kind of figure that out as you go.
Exactly. Well, playing on the idea of a 3-point threat, we can also look at the idea of a triple-double threat and looking at the maybe sliding in the standings a bit, having some tough times, but the Oklahoma City Thunder and Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook quietly, well, maybe not so quietly, but there's so many other people like your Blake Griffins and your such having great years. Russell Westbrook having a fantastic start to the year, 27 points, 10.5 assists, which is league high, and 7.2 rebounds for a point guard with a 29.81 PER. guys playing outstanding. You're still getting Kevin Durant his points, but it's something about the rest of the team. What do you think's going wrong there in OKC? Because their record is not as good as you'd think, considering they're healthy.
Well, I mean, two things. I mean, Phil, I mean, you brought this up in one of your videos the other day on YouTube. It's something we've been talking about for almost a year and a half, 2 years now. I've always thought the dynamic, Westbrook really is the leader on that team behind the scenes. I know that Durant is their most dynamic player, but it just seems like Westbrook is really holding the reins, and he's going full throttle right now. So I think there's kind of a difficulty with that hierarchy in terms of being the alpha and the beta dog there, and it continues. It will continue for the foreseeable future. And also, they have a new coach. So going into a new system with a new coach, they have a few players who really haven't played with Kevin because he missed most of last season. They've got a lot of chemistry issues, and yeah, they absolutely, if things start clicking, they'll be a much better team. But chemistry dynamics continue to haunt these guys.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the interesting part is we've seen that article. Kevin Durant calling Russell Westbrook the best player on the team, and we've
Which
heard
is fascinating to me, by the way.
and we've heard Westbrook say the same thing about Durant. They're like
Yeah.
they seem to be much closer this year, but I think it's interesting. Like I think if you can actually have that dynamic, and I've been saying this for a while, where they realize that Westbrook is the leader, and at 10.5 assists, you can't say he's not passing the rock. He's got that emotional leadership. If you can turn Kevin Durant, and it's understood as like your 1B, it doesn't have to be number 2, but 1B, and that's understood. Imagine Kevin Durant being the second best player in your team, and that's understood, and the system works that way. That is a very dangerous team. What worries me less than those two, I think those two are really clicking right now. What worries me more is as soon as they put their bench on, that defense, when you look at plus minuses, they are terrible defensively. You look at Enes Kanter, I know people have spoken about his lack of ability to defend. I mean, when we were looking at them play the Chicago Bulls, Derrick Rose just playing with them on the high pick and rolls, just jumping. Sure, he was hitting his shots, but at the same point, you can't just score and rebound. You have to stop someone.
Well, I mean, just to add to your point there, Utah started rolling the minute they traded him and let Rudy Gobert start. Think about that last season. So he's kind of doing the same thing in OKC right now. He doesn't exactly have defensive exploits. And so there's going to be gaps right there when he's coming in off the bench.
It's tough. And let's not forget, you were talking about their new coach, Billy Donovan, of the former Florida Gators coach. This is a lot of pressure because, yes, he has those ties with Sam Presti, their GM. But at the same point, they're expected to win now, right? Like, if you want to keep Westbrook and Durant around for some kind of foreseeable future, they need to start putting some W's on the board. And more than just W. This can't just be a 50-55 win season, second round out. Like, you have to be contending for that championship to have that chance, because guys like this are going to get to the playoffs no matter what team they're on. And so they're having to prove right now that this is the team they want to stick with. And it's a gutsy move putting a rookie coach. While I think he's great, and we've heard that this week Joakim Noah of the Chicago Bulls has said that Billy Donovan's the best coach he's ever played under, which is kind of funny considering the whole Thibodeau thing. But
yeah, and also Chicago, Hoiberg, rookie coach as well. That's not exactly the best situation either. You got Derrick Rose up and down, a lot of personalities, a lot of talent on that team. Not the ideal situation, I would say, for Hoiberg joining the league.
No, it's not, but I think he's doing a good job. I mean, it's been interesting. I think Jimmy Butler quietly is playing really, really well. Right now as we record this, they're fifth in the East at 4-2, and they're on a one-game winning streak. They're pretty good. I mean, when you look at the top of the Eastern Conference, surprisingly, no one talks about them, but the Atlanta Hawks are the top.
Yeah, they're 5-0 or 6-0 right now.
They've won their last 6 games, so they dropped their opener and they've won 6 straight, which is surprising. A lot of people, once they lost Amari Carroll to the Toronto Raptors, they thought they would take a tailspin. But maybe this is just a regular season team. Like, they've been this way for a while, ever since the Joe Johnson, Josh Smith years. But this is a team that's added some size in Thiago Splitter. Thabo Cephalosha is playing. They still have some of their stars. It's a good team, but. Like, is there a surprising team here? Because to me, if I start this off, I'm looking at the Milwaukee Bucks and Indiana Pacers at the bottom, and I didn't think the Bucks would be that low, and I didn't think the Pacers would be that high. This is kind of a strange start to the season for the East.
Well, I mean, I probably should have said from the top. Small sample size, right? We're dealing with what 7 to 10 days of the league in a long, 4, 5, 6 month season. So you take it as a grain of salt. I mean, I think teams will level out. We haven't even discussed Portland yet, who are killing it right now, and I really do not expect them to make the playoffs. So some teams get off to an early start. You got Milwaukee, who they have so many new pieces right now. I didn't expect them to really hit the ground running. Just you got to get into the flow of things. Atlanta, I mean, they have continuity. They've got basically that Spursian system with Coach Bud coming under from Greg Popovich is from coaching under him, and also bringing over Thiago Splitter, kind of filling in the void left by DeMarre Carroll. Not many changes to that system, so they basically hit the ground running. I do want to talk about some concerns I have with the Memphis Grizzlies, who, despite basically not making any major changes at all, aren't really themselves at all right now.
No, exactly. Well, I think they're showing a bit of their age, and I think they're showing that, maybe they should have made that move for the, stretch three. I mean, Marc Gasol's not playing at his all-star self, and they need a bit of pep. I mean, this looks like we saw the Russell Westbrook. I don't know if you saw the new Mountain Dew caffeinated beverage commercial. I think they need a few energy drinks to get this team going. Like, this is a team that's primed for a trade. They need an infusion of youth. I don't know where they're going to do it, but right now as we stand, they're just outside the playoff cusp, but they're also tied at 500 with Minnesota Timberwolves, which is not exactly a place you want to be. This is a team, I don't know, I can see them sliding. It's they've got a lot of talent, and I think they're one of those teams you never want to match up against, especially if you're a small team. But I think we may have seen the window for this team close, and I think we're seeing it before their GM really wants to admit it.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. They say this about that team every year, and they had a really, really great season under the radar last season. They were basically the number 2 team in the West almost 80% of the year, and then slowly kind of fell apart with injuries and fatigue at the end. And they also gave Golden State fits when they faced off in the playoffs, especially the first few games. And Michael Conley was playing with a mask and a bevy of injuries. Right now, I'm really worried about Marc Gasol. I was concerned that he did not play for Spain this summer in the Eurobasket tournament. I think it was the first time actually he's never represented his country in the summer. And you could say, he's doing that to preserve his body, but his brother
could be some injury concerns.
Yeah, that's my concern, because Powell has been doing it forever with no constraints. So apparently he has a very stiff neck. That's been a major issue for him, and lingering at least the last few days. Watch out for that. And also Zebo has been lost at least half a step this offseason. He was defensively was like Swiss cheese the other night against Portland. That's a concern of mine. And but I love these guys. I think they'll be able to figure it out as long as there's no major injuries. And I think they'll be able to still sneak into the playoffs as long as they keep the core healthy there.
I agree there. And another team that's doing sneakily well, even though their record doesn't necessarily reflect it, the Orlando Magic. We saw them recently take a game from the Toronto Raptors, so their only loss. And they also beat the aforementioned Anthony Davis and their Pelicans. This is a team that lost to the Thunder only by 3, lost to the Wizards only by 1, lost to the Bulls by 5. And these are good teams, right? These are playoff teams. And they lost the Rockets by 5, but again, the Rockets are a playoff team. Like, this is a team that is young, hungry. They're going to make a lot of mistakes, and they're probably going to lose the big games to the big teams, outside of Toronto. But this is a team that, I think people should look out for sooner rather than later. And they're doing this without Alfred Payton playing amazingly. They have youth, they have talent. It's all over the place. Mario Hezonja is playing well, even in limited minutes. Seeing Eric Gordon really stretch his game. I'm really liking what he brings to the table. The Orlando Magic are a really fun team to watch.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon. Yeah, and Hezonja looks really comfortable out there for a 19, 20-year-old who's only been playing in Barcelona the last year or two. He's got a good feel for the game as a youngster. Vucevic, if that's how, I forget how to pronounce his name, my apologies,
You got it.
was out last game with an apparent knee injury, so that's something maybe to look out for. But Oladipo, loving how he stepped up, especially
And how
against.
he's rebounding for a
Yeah.
little guy.
Well, I just against OKC taking those important shots. I mean, he's willing to put himself out there on a limb and in a leadership role for that team. Peyton is a pretty solid point guard for a young guy, and they have a lot of pieces there in Orlando.
Yeah, well, it's funny you said the Oladipo bit, because one of my concerns with this team is who's going to step up, who's going to be their leader. It was a team with a lot of guys who were very talented, but I didn't see that blue chip piece. I didn't see the guy who was going to take them to the promised land, with all guys being, the second fiddle, third fiddle behind him. And while there's a lot of talent in Vucevic and all these other guys, I think Oladipo not only has the talent, but also has that personality.
Mm-hmm.
He reminds me in weird ways of a bit with that aggression of Russell Westbrook. Obviously their games are a bit different, but he attacks the basket. Anyone at the starting of the season who averages close to 10 rebounds a game, with being a point guard, shooting guard. I mean, he's got the point guard's body. That's impressive. That's all heart. That's effort, and that's the stuff that gets you into the playoffs. Because those are the little points. That's the game of inches kind of thing.
I had no idea he was averaging 10 right now. What is he, 6'2", 6'3"? Like, that's insane.
Something about that. He's got long arms, great hops, as we've seen in the dunk contest. But he's just a monster. And I mean, when we're talking about young guys, there's a lot of guys doing their thing all around. And we couldn't do our due diligence without, going back and talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, we had a firsthand look, seen them in Ottawa with getting to meet Karl Anthony Towns and such. There's a team we're both very high on, obviously going through their learning pains, their growing pains. But what are you coming away with the Minnesota Timberwolves? Because this is a team that, if you're not paying attention to them now, don't be too late to jump on this bandwagon, because that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell people who are new to basketball, watch the Minnesota Timberwolves, because they're this really interesting mix of old guys, young guys, and this tremendous backstory of the man who's been kind of the architect of the entire franchise for the last 20 years, brought everyone in. He's actually been kind of the heart and soul of Minnesota basketball for four decades, just passing away 2 weeks ago. And so just to see these guys coming together and kind of building an identity as a squad through all this tragedy, it's really amazing. And like you said, being able to sit down with Karl Anthony Towns, really on the precipice of something really special. Go on hoopslounge.com, my latest article there, and there's artwork by Jack Perkins with Pure Hoop. He's an old soul. He's a very special player. And Justin Rowan, our good friend, who's away at a dentist appointment right now, has a great theory that that Cat is going to be the leader on that team. And I built a story around that concept, and I really think he's the future. And that Andrew Wiggins, who I have a lot of concerns because he's not been himself. He's not making shots. He's not being ultra aggressive offensively. I have a feeling that he's got some lingering back issues that we're not being told about. And I just think eventually Karl is going to step up completely as the leader on that squad, become the captain, and Andrew and everyone else is going to kind of fall in line and form a really dynamic squad for years to come.
Absolutely, and there are very few people in my mind who are better poised to be his mentor than Kevin Garnett, who's there every step of the way. And we're seeing Kevin Garnett cheer him on, even from the bench, when Karl Anthony Towns makes the right play, makes the right pass, the defensive play, the block, the shot. He's just his biggest fan, and you can tell when you have that kind of a player, that much talent, size. He's got like the biggest feet in the NBA, from what I can tell. And having a guy like Kevin Garnett pushing you and telling you to do all the right things, because whenever you can take that much talent and intellect and put the ferocity and intensity of a Kevin Garnett together, that's a scary thing. And to your Andrew Wiggins part, I actually think it's in his best interest to not have to be the guy. And I think we've said this a few times, but I think Andrew Wiggins, if he can be the second, maybe third, if he's a really good option on a team, that's a really good spot for him, especially because he's a bit of a shy guy. And, just let him come along naturally. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves have done a beautiful job of bringing, good veterans along. And there's a lot of talent there, but we have to keep jumping along. And when we're talking about young guys, there's one team that really excites me, even though they don't have a point guard to give their big guys the rock. We're looking at the Philadelphia 76ers. Jahlil Okafor, averaging close to 20 points a game as a rookie. Nerlens Noel being a monster on the glass, steals and blocks. This guy is quickly becoming a favorite of mine on this team. And I mean, there's aside from the lack of guard play, although we are getting to see some nice up and comers, I guess. Um, this is a team that has a lot to look forward to. I mean, Nerlens Noel right now is averaging 14 points a game, which is a bit surprising. I didn't think it would be quite that high that soon, and 11 rebounds a game with 2 steals and 2 blocks a game. And I love the hair, obviously. So this
Yeah.
and they have Nick Stauskas. Nick Stauskas is getting to play. As I said, 30 minutes a game, 13.8 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He's getting to show his thing. I mean, this team may not win a lot of games, but they're bringing the big man game back. And I was reading this article before how Brett Brown, their coach, was trying to play them. He looked at old tape of the San Antonio Spurs, how they played Tim Duncan and David Robinson, and
Hmm.
tried to kind of compare that to using Okafor and Noel. I mean, I don't know if you've had a lot of chance to watch any 76ers game, but it's kind of refreshing. I mean, like obviously we see it in Memphis, but they're a bit longer in the tooth, but seeing some real legit big men in a smaller NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually, if I'd spoken to him, I would have recommended watching some Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson together. That's kind
Mhm.
of an interesting dynamic they got. And we have to mention the fact that their roster is pretty stacked. Joel Embiid is out for yet another season. He was the #1 pick, 2 years ago. So I haven't really had much chance to watch them play, to be honest. But I'm really glad Nick Stauskas got out of Sacramento and actually has an opportunity to actually get some minutes there. Because
Oh, he's got a great opportunity here. He's got some big men. He can shoot some threes, use his ball handling skills, set them up. It's beautiful.
But I do have to say, I absolutely love the New Jerseys and the Ben Franklin logo. I think it's kind of kick-stepping them into kind of a new culture there. And man, I'd love to see these guys in the playoffs in like 2 years.
Well, speaking of the playoffs, I mean, there's one team that I think their leader was hoping they'd make it there, but it's a bit of a tough time. Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh boy.
I don't think this is how the Mamba envisioned him going out. Can you give any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, he makes way too much money, and the last 2 years has just been, you know, just injuries after injuries after injuries, and it's sad because at the tail end of his prime, he was still a dynamic, stellar ball players, but just father time has really caught up to Kobe. He stated, I think yesterday, that he's not going to wear another uniform, so I don't think the Lakers are going to offer him another contract. They have so many because his contract ends at the end of the season. They have so many young budding talents there right now. They have to keep that money available for those guys and bringing in more talent. So I have a feeling that Kobe will hang him up this year. I still have a kind of an outlier shot that he'll end up playing in Italy somewhere for a few months or whatever, kind of feel that out. But this is the end. The end is very near, and he does suck. I mean, at least he had the fortitude to actually admit that he's just not what he once was. Doesn't have that explosiveness, and guys have clued into this. Scouts have clued into this. It just feels like the vultures are really circling him right now.
Exactly. And speaking of vultures circling, I mean, there was a team where we thought the vultures were circling hard last year, but thanks to a nice little pickup of the man no one knew much about, the New York Knicks, Kristaps Porzingis, they're looking
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and I got to mention Kawhi Leonard, the way he defensively ate up Melo, like maybe I've never seen before in my life. It speaks to the fact that Melo is into Kawhi himself, but it speaks to the fact that Melo's on that slow decline as well. Porzingis is amazing. I mean, he's one of those Vine guys. He does like
And
one or
he's
two.
rebounding the basketball. Everyone was so worried he'd be the next where you're speaking of Italy, Andrea Bargnani. But no, this
Yeah,
guy's tough. He blocks shots, he rebounds.
yeah, I mean, my two concerns, and they have been from the start, is the fact that he's in the Mecca where the media in New York can eat you alive, and secondly, he seems to be a little bit injury prone. But the guy's got a natural instinct and knack for the game. He really doesn't mind bumping and bruising, and I think he's going to be special as long as he stays on the court.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many good stories here. I mean, like just looking down the list. I mean, Cleveland at 5-1. Obviously, we're expecting them to be pretty good, but I'm glad they're chugging along. Toronto is really like continuity 101. These guys are
Yeah.
really killing it.
And Damari Carroll has been a great fit. And as you mentioned, Corey Joseph, your sneaky good 6 man of the year pick, has been pretty amazing off the bench for those guys.
Exactly. And at 3 at 3, we're seeing the Indiana Pacers, Paul George, the power forward situation kind of working out. Maybe not. Like, I don't expect them to stay there. And the Miami Heat still figuring themselves out. I thought they'd hit the ground running a little bit more than they have. Maybe I'm not yet willing to say I've overestimated them, but they still have a bit to work out. But the interesting stuff is all in the West. I mean, we're looking
Mhm.
at at the time we taped this, the 6-0 Golden State Warriors. So they just haven't missed a beat, right? Steph Curry is, I mean, like I was saying before, people haven't been talking as much about Westbrook, and we had Blake Griffin putting up monster numbers as well. But Steph Curry is just on another world. It's like,
Well, the interesting thing with Steph is that virtually no one expected him to continue his climb up. I think people thought that was peak Steph Curry heading into the spring last year. And now he just keeps going up. I mean, these stats he's got right now, shooting 50, 60, 70 odd percent from certain 3-point areas of the court. It's just unheard of. I know it's small sample size. I know at this projection he's going to shoot 500 threes, but he's just doing things no one's done before. It seems like he's like almost a carnival act that the world's kind of watching. He's drawing in people from outside of the basketball world, kind of around the globe, fascinating with this kind of phenomenon that is Steph Curry. It's really fascinating. I mean, last night they destroyed Denver. They had 40 points in the first quarter, and then I think it was 28 assists at halftime, which I don't even know if that's an NBA record. They're doing things phenomenally. All the guys seem to be improving steadily, and this is all without Steve Kerr, which kind of is the most amazing thing about all this, by the way. And guys like what I call him Festivus, but that block he had on Blake Griffin the other night. So many guys just kind of stepping up in all of their roles for this squad. And like you said, continuity, no major changes. I can't wait till Steve Kerr gets back from his back injury and things really, really gel, because these guys are rolling already.
oh, exactly. And people are always impressed, the 50-40-90 club, 50% shooting, 40 from three, 90% from free throw.
Yeah.
Speaking of Steph Curry, he's actually at 57 field goal, 50% from three, and 93 from free throw. But the most impressive thing for me, just to finish up on the Golden State Warriors,
Mm-hmm.
is how they've allotted their minutes. I don't know if many people have been paying attention to this, but the highest person who plays any minutes is Draymond Green, followed by Steph Curry. Draymond Green leads them at 32.8 minutes. These are very Greg Popovich numbers.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson's at 27. Like, we're seeing Andre Iguodala playing similar minutes to Klay Thompson. This is going to make for a fresh team come the playoffs, and they're already playing at such a high level. This is a dangerous number because it means they use their bench, and they're effective.
Yeah, I'd be really concerned if I'm any other team in the league right now.
Absolutely. And listen, so obviously week one, there's a lot going on. As you said, small sample size, things can change. People get used to each other. Injuries happen. But if you had to take away kind of a general consensus or a feeling about week one, what would that have been?
A lot of guys have worked on their game over the summer. We're seeing guys like Ricky Rubio, CJ McCollum, Kenneth Faried, Kawhi Leonard. A lot of guys just kind of taking things, I think, working on things that were, I guess, people were critical of, and you can already see immediate kind of dividends playing. I mean, Kawhi is quietly playing at an MVP type. I know Steph is
He could really be the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same.
which is insane considering where he's come from over 2 years ago. He's still never been an All-Star. I mean, keep that in mind.
I think that's going to change.
Yeah, but I mean, guys have really stepped his game. Like I said, Rubio now apparently has a jump shot. He's been somewhat consistent with the first 5-6 games. CJ McCollum doing great things, especially offensively there for Portland.
Well, that whole Portland team is just way outplaying expectations at this point, right?
Yeah, and our friend Dwight Walton mentioned that he got to see CJ McCollum train like crazy this summer, did some training in Toronto. Some of these guys are really putting in the work in, and like I said, you can see how it's playing out on the court.
Absolutely, and just to add to that list of guys who improved, Giannis Antetokounmpo. People were saying, does he really have a place? Is he a jack of all trades but a master of none? He's scoring 20 points a game, close to 10 rebounds a game. Has been playing power forward, really added some weight to his body, looking fantastic. But to me, the takeaway is just superstars being superstars again. What I love is it's a healthy league. Our guys are producing. Blake Griffin's looking like a superstar. Like Anthony Davis, maybe it's not to the level we thought, but he's still great. We're seeing We're seeing great numbers all around. We're seeing great play. The NBA is in full swing. This is the greatest time to be a fan. I'm really excited for the upcoming season. And I know from Mark and myself, we'll be bringing you tons more content here on hoopslounge.com. So please remember to share and like this comment. And if there's something you'd like us to talk about or you'd like to join the conversation, remember, as always, this is why we do it. Keep it in the lounge.
Yeah, see ya.